and there's still time.
Hello and welcome to episode 55 of There's Still Time, the AFTN Podcast. I'm Michael McCall.
And I'm Steve Pander.
And we're bringing you another post-game podcast. Sadly, it's after the Whitecaps' first defeat of the 2014 season. Colorado came to BC Place, ran out unlikely 2-1 winners. I say unlikely because the Whitecaps went 1-0 up, looked in complete control, looked really comfortable, and then turning point. 4 minutes that completely turned the game. Matthias Laba was sent off, and then 2 wonder strikes from Jose Mari. Disappointing loss, Steve.
Yeah, like you said, it was a turning point. It was a real, like at the point that happened. Yes, the Colorado player had fouled Laba, but let's say right off the bat, Laba made a huge mistake handling the ball, being already on a yellow card. It doesn't make a difference. The referees are going to miss calls all the time, but he put the referee in a position where maybe there's nothing the referee could do about it in sending off.
That's the way I feel as well. I know it can be viewed as being harsh, but letter of the law, you handle the ball, you always have to play to the whistle. And it's a harsh lesson for Laba, it's a harsh lesson for the Whitecaps, but basically they didn't play to the whistle. And they paid the price, the ultimate price of going down a man, just not getting their shape back quickly enough and being heavily punished for it.
So yeah, essentially that's what it was. You're right there. They weren't able to recover from going a man down, which is, it maybe takes a few minutes. Maybe there's something they did wrong where they couldn't slow down the play or something. But yeah, 2 great strikes. Mari was basically open on both shots and nobody was even around him or anything like that. It was 2 fantastic strikes by him.
I mean, you don't save those, and David Eichstead didn't. But as you say, was he closed down enough? Was he given too much space to get those shots off in the first place? I mean, we're going to have to watch all the game tape again, point fingers, and just see who didn't do their job and who didn't mark up and who let all that space happen. But up until that point, I mean, it was looking like it was going to be a comfortable Whitecaps win.
Definitely, the Whitecaps pressed from the beginning. Let's go to the beginning of the first half now. I thought they really did well to press forward. They weren't able to take advantage of their chances, and that might have been the ultimate what happened there. Because maybe if they're up 2 or 3 goals, the sending off doesn't make it that much of a difference, and Colorado won't be able to come back. There was a couple instances in the first half where Maddox had chances, wasn't able to score.
Well, he did have it in the net once.
Yeah, but that was offside. Let's talk about that offside. He was just offside, but
definitely off.
But I posed this question to you when it just happened. Was it a lazy offside? It was clearly offside, but was it lazy offside where he could have been a foot or 2 back and still gotten to the ball? He seemed to hugging the shoulder, but it wasn't an effective straddling of the line there.
It's hard to say it was lazy because you don't know how well, or you can't class how well the Colorado defence did in moving up. I think when the shot came in as well, it is kind of criminal to leave yourself to be offside when a shot's coming in from outside the box. That is a bad mistake for a striker to make. And by the letter of the law, he was in an offside position, even though it came off the keeper and you could maybe class it as second phase of play. He had got the advantage by being in that offside position, and then he buried it. And I mean, he did bury it, and that must have given him some confidence. But yeah, I don't think he should probably have allowed himself to be in that offside position to start with.
And then the Rapids, essentially, they had a couple of chances in that first half. Deshaun Brown.
Well, it was 8 shots all. Although Colorado only had 1 on target, and Deshaun Brown had 6 of those 8.
Yeah, and he was, and there was a couple of times where there was that one play where he was sent in all alone almost, but couldn't get the ball on the net. Other than that, Colorado really weren't that dangerous in that first half. It was mostly the Whitecaps pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, going into the game, my big fear was that the pace of someone like Brown was going to pose problems to O'Brien and to DeMerit. And it did at times in the first half, not to an extent where Colorado scored, although he did whip that shot just inches past the right-hand post. I thought at the half, Colorado would have gone in a lot happier. They'd made 6 changes from the team that started against Kansas City last week. Some of them were forced because of injuries, some were because of suspension, and Pablo Mastroeni decided to not bring and rest Edson Buddle and Vicente Sanchez because he didn't want them playing on the turf. So you're thinking Colorado's going to go in, they haven't given a goal up, they've kind of kept it pretty tight, they're going to be feeling pretty confident. But then the Whitecaps kind of upped the level a bit in the second, and it did look like there was only going to be one winner. Then they take the lead. Absolutely wonderful goal from Mattix.
Yeah, a good strike, good play by Fernandez had just come in. He got the ball up to Miller. Miller took a couple touches and sent Mattix right in there. Yeah, it was a fantastic strike, a good build-up of play. Fernandez had just come on as a sub, headed the ball forward to Miller, who took a couple of touches and just kind of sliced the ball in the path of Mattix, who this time made no mistake and got the ball and beat Irwin, who had up to that point had played very well for his first start of the season.
Yeah, great finish from Mattix, and also for me, what Kenny Miller did in that play just shows the quality and the importance that he has to this team. Controlled it first with his head, brought it down, controlled it with his foot, knew exactly where Mattix should be running to. And I mean, I've criticised Darren before for not having the footballing brain. Can't criticise him there. He did fantastic. He knew where Miller was going to play the ball. Miller knew where Mattix was going to be. It was just a great finish. And at that point, the Whitecaps were in the ascendancy, and they should have made it 2 just over a minute later when it was a 3-on-1 break. And when you've got a 3-on-1 break against a tiring visiting team, you have to take advantage of those chances. And ultimately, that miss or Irwin save, depending on who you want to give the credit to, that kind of cost the Whitecaps the win more than the red card.
Yeah, like we talked about it, there was we had ideas whether he should have left it for Miller or not. We're not sure if Miller would have got to the ball if he had left it, but you expect Morales to take it. And the only issue I have with the Morales hit was that he took it one time when there was so much space. He could have gotten around the keeper with a touch, and he just slotted an easy ball into the net because Irwin was coming out charging at that point, and he was playing big. So maybe an extra touch might have done something and gotten him a better look at the net. Also,
like a touch and not actually shoot, but touch and then set Kenny up. Because,
yeah, I mean, Kenny might be in an offside position though at that point.
But by that point, he possibly would have been. When the break was on, I wanted the ball to come to Miller, and I felt that Morales should have left it, and that Miller should have got it. And I think from the angle and where Irwin was, Miller would have buried that. We don't know, of course, whether Miller gave the shout or whether Morales understood it or not, but I mean, it was a bad opportunity not to capitalise on, and as we know, about 10 minutes later, the Whitecaps were punished heavily for not being 2 up.
Yeah, and it was basically the Laba, we already talked about the Laba, the foul and grabbing the ball.
Yeah, let's not even cover that anymore.
But then right after that, it was basically the ball got put up the field, right around where Laba would have been. Essentially, Marie parked himself right in there, right in front of in that space between the midfield and the back line, and he took a great slicing shot and just deposited the far post. It was a fantastic strike. Now, looking back on the goal, at that point, a lot of people are on Twitter and everything are blaming Russell Teibert on this, but the closest midfielder to him were Fernandez and Morales. And they weren't able to close down, and the back line was, I think, too far backed up at that point, and maybe somebody should have came up and been more aggressive on that, because once the shot was taken, there was nothing that could be done about that. It was a fantastic strike right off the post. So that goal hurt them big time in setting up and then obviously 3 minutes later it even got worse.
If you freeze frame Mari's first goal, he's got so much space that there's 4 Whitecaps round about him. There's Fernandez, there's Teibert, I think it's going to be Beitashour and Andy O'Brien in front of him. He had acres of room. I mean, he could have picked a through ball. We had time to do that. There was a pass out to the left if he wanted to do that. But he saw the big gap that was there for the shot. And if you notice when he hits the shot as well, Andy O'Brien kind of does that thing which defenders should never do. He turns away and kind of makes himself smaller when the ball comes in.
That's the June Marcus David thing that bugged me every time last year.
I remember you. That was a big bugbear of yours.
Everybody called him the Shield. Yet, when you want to be the Shield, you want to be as big as possible to block the shot.
I mean, it was something I never noticed at the time, but just us watching the replay just now, O'Brien doing that, I think, did open up a little bit more space. And, I mean, it was a gaping hole, a great finish. Can't take anything away from that. It's definitely going to be up for the goal of the week. I haven't obviously seen the rest of the games. I mean, who knows, it might even win it. He's obviously not going to get player of the week because Clint Dempsey scored a hat-trick, so he's obviously going to get that. But what a strike. I actually asked him after the game, and we'll hear some of the audio later on, whether he's scored 2 better goals than that, and he's like, no, never scored better goals than that.
So it's a once-in-a-lifetime performance. That
great for us to see that.
No, but what else is new? That seems to happen to the Whitecaps all the time.
But then, as you say, 3 minutes later, he follows it up with just another fantastic strike.
Yeah, on that second goal, again, he found space once again. This time he found space in front of the central midfielders because they had backed up. Like the back line had been almost at the 6-yard box area because they had taken the ball out to the end line and essentially worked it back. So the back line was pushed forward. The holding midfield is even backed up a little bit more. In this case, you have to almost put the blame on the wingers who should have been coming back, the attacking players like guys like Mane.
Well, Kakuta was the closest guy to him when he hit the shot, and it looked like he was going to try and come in and make the tackle and try and put him off, but he stopped. I mean, if you watch, he kind of runs and then he hesitates for a split second, and that split second is when Mari gets the shot off, and again, Eisted had no chance with either of those.
Just perfect placement on that one. That one was just a perfect placed ball on that shot. So it's just very disappointing. They tried to come back at the end.
They fought hard with the 10 men, but there was never going to be any way back after that.
It was just a matter of not being able to organize quickly enough. I think after getting sent off, and Laba, Jay Duke wrote about it earlier in the week on AFTN. How important a player he is, and it kind of clearly showed how important of a player he was to them. I know people are going to say that being down just one man shouldn't put you in that position, but maybe this is a player that they can't afford to lose off the pitch at any time.
Well, I mean, you saw how the Whitecaps struggled against 10 men against Chivas, and they couldn't find a way through, and then you saw how easy it was for Colorado to make use of the man advantage. But the big difference being, the guy that was missing, as you say, was a guy that had that key position in front of the back four, so right in the middle of the penalty box if you want. Take him away and then all the gaps are there.
Now, do you think if we talk about early substitutions, that they made an early substitution in Gershon Kofi today? And Gershon Kofi had a decent game.
Yeah, I thought he did well, and I was surprised that it was actually him that came off. And I mean, I can't criticise Robinson because I've been so positive and so enthusiastic about his attacking substitutions and his early substitutions that it was great that he did try and brighten it up by bringing on an attacking sub in Fernandez, but the shape kind of went a bit.
It went a bit, and also when Laba went off, Gershon Kofi would have been an ideal player to be put into that spot.
We had no DMs that could slot in.
Russell Teibert was the only guy, and he's more of a two-man holding midfielder kind of rotation where there's two guys there. He's never played by himself there. And Morales tried to put there, but Morales is not a guy that you want to have there. So there was essentially nobody that they could put on. And they were talking about it in the post-game presser, and you're going to hear this soon, where they were asking, somebody asked about Leveron possibly coming on, but Bravo said basically that, with quick goals like that within 3 minutes of somebody getting sent off, or 4 minutes within 4 minutes of somebody getting sent off, there was no way to get Leveron on there. And once the second goal went in, there was no point of putting Leveron there. You want to go attacking at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows if he would have made a difference. And we still had that one sub left, and then we brought Eric Hurtado on with just seconds remaining, which kind of seemed pointless to bring him on at that point. But that's some of our initial thoughts on the game. Before we go any further, let's hear a little bit from the Whitecaps dressing room. First time this season the Whitecaps have had a loss, and first time at home that the Whitecaps dressing room has been a little bit downbeat. So let's hear first of all from head coach Carl Robinson, captain Jay DeMerit, and Kenny Miller.
To the red card, well, I could sit here and say I haven't seen it, but I have seen it, and it's obviously a foul, and he sent him off for a decision that I think he's got wrong, in my opinion, and obviously ultimately it's cost the game. It was difficult because we went down, and then obviously the boys hit a thunderbolt before we knew. We haven't got set, and it's 1-1, and it's 2-1 before we know. So it's a kick in the teeth to us and the boys in there, and I've said I'm proud of them. I really am. We didn't go under. We kept fighting till the end. We had 1 or 2 half chances, but it's a pity we're not talking about the game, because it was a good game today. It really was. We missed a couple of chances probably we should have taken, but there'll be other talking points, not the game, which is unfortunate.
We all feel like we've gotten punched in the gut a little bit there. Unfortunately, that happens in our sport. Some things you can't control. I thought the things we could control was enough to win. Unfortunately, that didn't happen tonight, and everyone gets assessed on their performances, including the referee. So hopefully people look at that and assess it in the right way.
Stunned?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good word to use, is stunned. It kind of hit us at the wrong time too, when we think that we have the game by the scruff of the neck and we're controlling things. It's kind of a 1-2 punch there, and you find yourself on the back foot. So again, it is what it is. You have to say that the guys fought for 90 minutes tonight, even when we went down a man. Had enough chances to win. Unfortunately, that didn't happen either. I thought second half, if we take that back-to-back chances and we go 2-0 up, it could be a different game. But those are things we work on. But at the time, we were still up 1-0 and in control of the game. So ultimately, it's disappointing. Ultimately, I think everyone will walk out of BC Place tonight a little bit disappointed and feeling a little bit like something gotten taken away from him. So it is what it is, and we just got to keep fighting. We got to keep performing like that at home, and I guaranteed more times than not we'll be on the other end of that result.
I think it was plain to see that we never quite hit the heights that we hit in the first 2 home games, but nevertheless, 1-0 up, should be 2-0 up. It's probably game over if that goes in, and obviously when I'm walking off 15 minutes to go, I could never have envisioned that we were going to lose that game, because I felt we were so comfortable. But obviously the red card has turned the game on its head. Listen, you can create chances, but you're not always going to score 3 and 4 goals every week. It's about you want to take the chances when you create them. Again, I thought it was a penalty in the first half. Whether the ball was out of play or not, there was definitely contact with the goalkeeper, so I thought we probably deserved a penalty. But we got our nose in front, and again, we should have been 2-0 up. It was a fantastic opportunity within 2 minutes of the goal to go 2-0 up. Again, not taken, and like I said before, the red card turns the game on its head, and 2 fantastic strikes for the player to take the win.
What kind of positives can you take from this match?
Well, at the moment it's disappointing. Obviously, when you're just finished off a result like that, you try and go away and assess it, look at the game and see what we can take out of it. Again, the manager had a bit of a go at us at half time because we never quite hit the heights that we were expecting to hit. But we went out the second half and got our noses in front, and deservedly so. And at that point, it looked like we were going to go on and win the game and win it comfortably. But obviously, like I said before, with the red card coming at the time it did, and losing a goal within a minute of Matty Laba, who again was outstanding today. Within a minute of him going off, we're 1-1. It was going to be a long last 12 minutes.
So what do you think of those goals?
Great strikes. I mean, again, sometimes you've got to put your hands up and say 2 fantastic goals, and the lads, 1 right, 1 left. It's great technique, 2 great goals.
So that's audio from the Whitecaps dressing room there. A very down Whitecaps dressing room, as you'd imagine. And Steve, you were in there. What was the vibe like?
Oh, one of the players had mentioned it. I can't remember who, but it was like basically, it was like that. It was like a punch in the gut for the players. Nobody was really overly happy. Even Darren Maddox, who had scored his first goal, wasn't up in our, like last year. And this maybe shows a little bit of the maturation process of Darren Maddox, where last year I think he would have been a little bit more excited about scoring his first. This game there was no excitement. He was just more interested in what the team was. So he's very, you could tell by just that is some positives you could see from there.
Well, that's a good thing. And Kenny Miller was asked if he could take any positives from the game, and he basically said no. There were no positives that you could take.
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those performances. I mean, we'll look at some of the individual players. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Darren Maddox, so we'll just finish off talking about him. We've ridden him a lot in the podcast. He has shown a completely different personality this year, and what I've been waiting for is for him to get this first goal and to see what this does for his confidence, and whether we're now going to see a Darren that explodes, or is he going to go back to missing chances and stuff. I'm hoping it's going to be the former, and that this is going to be the big breaking point and the big breakout now for Darren.
What I liked about after the goal, one thing I could point out that I liked was the fact that when he scored and then they had that chance 2 minutes later, he didn't, like the old Darren Maddox might have gone off and taken the shot right away just to get a second goal.
Yep.
He actually held up, drew the defender in, and got the ball off to Morales. And that was, I think, very important for him, because he, like we said, he might have gone back into a selfish mode where he just took a shot and maybe missed the net by miles.
That's a very good point, because when that break was on, I'm going Darren pass, and I didn't think he was going to, because I was thinking of the Maddox of old, and the fact that he did do the pass, I think is amazing credit to him, and it shows that he is now looking more from the team aspect than just the individual. Didn't work in the end, maybe he should have taken the shot, but it was good to see.
Now Kenny Miller, he's a guy who obviously set up the goal. He set Maddox up. He was substituted off quite early. And he mentioned that in the post game, that when he got substituted off, he could not see this coming, where the Whitecaps were going to be losing 2-1. He didn't see that coming at all. He thought it was like the game was basically handled at that point. Colorado wasn't putting anything through forward. So what were your thoughts on his play? I thought he had a decent game again, second game in a row as striker up top.
He again put in a decent work rate, but there's still something lacking. He doesn't, I mean, what he does off the ball and what he does in setting up and holding the ball and the little flicks to set other people up, that's fantastic. But when no one else is scoring, you're needing Kenny to be the guy that scores. And the last couple of games, take these penalties that he's had out of it, he hasn't looked really like scoring.
And then you got the shout-out, he mentioned that too, that he thought it was a penalty in that first half when he was taken down. He didn't feel like it mattered. The ball was out of play. He still got taken down by the goalkeeper. Your thoughts on that? What do you think about it?
When I saw it live, I didn't think it was a penalty, and I was like, "Oh, what's he appealing for? It's never a penalty." But then when you watch the replay, well, if nothing else, it was a corner because Irwin got the touch on it, and it was given as a goal kick. But when you watch the replay, and the more you watch it, and you're actually watching Irwin, and he takes Kenny's legs away. I agree with Kenny in this case, and even if it was the flip, I would agree if it had been a Colorado player that was brought down. I just feel that was a penalty because he was clearly brought down. Maybe that was one of the other turning points in the game.
And then you got a guy like Pedro Morales, who everybody was talking about coming into this game. Clearly, the Rapids were not going to give him that much space on the pitch at all. He was playing a lot deeper sometimes at points. At one point, he even played on the right-hand side of the pitch. He played out as a wide midfielder. He seemed to really struggle with the attention that he was getting in this game, at least. And his passing wasn't too effective as it was against Houston. That's
the thing now with Morales. After what he did last week, he's going to be a marked man. He's got all the attention on him. People know what he is capable of. So he's going to get heavily marked, and he's going to get a lot more attention now in games going forward, especially games on the road. Now, I wrote in, I think it was in one of my Soccerly articles that I did last week, that what Morales did last week when he was spraying the balls around the pitch, it was a joy to behold, and it was just fantastic. But it's those kind of balls, and it's like Kenny Miller actually said this after the game last week. When it comes off, he looks great. When they don't come off, he looks a chump. And what you saw in that first half is too many of his passes, there's two I remember in particular, one that was played through to Kenny and one that was played through to Gershon Kofi. It was about 1-2 feet too heavy, and he was overhitting it. He just didn't seem to have his eye in, and when he's doing that, the Caps are suffering.
We talked about Gershon Kofi a little bit earlier, but let's move on to the other guy that was in the midfield, Russell Tybert. I know you had issues with him getting involved in the attack. I thought he played a phenomenal game defensively, especially in the first half. He was running people down all left, right, and center. Also, at first, I thought it was his fault that some of those goals went in, but clearly looking at the replay, it wasn't his fault. I thought another solid game. It wasn't, again, not spectacular, but something that the Whitecaps need, somebody that can put like a pit bull type of effort into the central midfield.
Yeah, I mean, he ran around well. I just want to see him getting forward a bit more. I just want to see more of the attacking Russell. Now, apart from his sending off, what did you make of Laba's performance overall? I mean, he picked up his first booking in the second half for something that might even have got reviewed anyway. He kind of went in foot up, and I don't know, he got a booking for that. How did you feel his overall play was? I was listening to the pre-game show for a little bit when we were coming in, and they were kind of wanting to see a little bit more aggression from him and him pushing forward a bit more. Kind of maybe doing that aggression is what cost him and got him the sending off.
Yeah, there were a couple of points where he was overly aggressive, but I thought he played well. You think of a guy like Dillon Powers, who is one of their attackers in the midfield, and he was basically invisible in this game. There wasn't very much coming from him.
Yeah.
So I think he did a decent job, but I'm sorry that whatever he did in the game gets decreased to a very low level because of the fact of what he did with the yellow card. Whatever people want to say, I'm still going to count to that as being the big turning point, and it was a blunder on his part.
Now, before the sending off, one of the questions I was going to ask you in this post-game podcast was, what do we do next week with that midfield? If Rio Coker's good to go, did Gershon Kofi do enough to stay in? Do you go back to the 4-2-3-1? These were all the questions I was posing. So let's just for now forget about the Laba red card. I wish we really could, but we can't. So if things had been the way that they are, I'm maybe even looking forward to the next home game against the Galaxy. Does Rio Coker come in at the expense of Kofi, or do you keep him kind of sitting on the bench?
Well, it all depends on his fitness. Like, he didn't even get full training, I don't think, this week. Maybe
he trained a little bit on Friday.
Late last week, but that was not enough. I think a lot of it with Rio Coker has to do with his fitness, because he wasn't fit at all in the first 3 games. So, at this point, based on what Kofi did, I wouldn't have put him in. Obviously, now with Laba out, I think unless you change the lineup a little bit, he probably does come in as a 4-2-3-1 holding midfielder.
Because next week we're heading down to LA, and that is a game where you're having to have like that holding shield really, really strong.
Definitely.
So I think there's no way now that Rio Coker's not going to come back in, and then it's going to probably be Rio Coker and Kofi with Laba being suspended. So then when Laba comes in 2 weeks' time for the LA home game, that's really going to pose a quandary for Carl Robinson. So a lot is going to depend on how these guys go. I felt that this week was the last chance for Gershon Kofi to claim a starting spot. Next week it could be him and Rio Coker battling it out, and whichever one performs best could be the one that's going to be this DM beside Laba going forward.
For sure. And let's go quickly. Let's go quickly over the backline of the goalkeepers. Obviously Ostad, I don't think he did anything horribly wrong.
No,
I think
he
did on the
did
goals.
well.
The backline itself, I don't think they were horrible. They
weren't horrible, but they just... I mean, Beitashour pushed forward a couple of times, which was one of my keys going into the game.
They weren't horrible defensively. There was nothing they could do because they weren't in... we talked about the first goal. Maybe O'Brien and Beitashour could have closed down a little bit better, but nothing... That was a great shot. The other goal, that was mostly from a deeper position, so there was nothing that could be done there either. So, I don't see anything that we could have done about that, so...
it was a good back line. Yeah. I don't see any changes. Although, I mean, this might be a game that Robinson decides to rest O'Brien. Because he says he's going to want to rest O'Brien, DeMerit and Miller over the season. So LA away, that might be one of the games. Or they might just want to keep O'Brien rested for one of the trips east.
Yeah.
We'll soon find out, though. So before we wrap up talking about the Whitecaps today, we put out on Twitter asking our listeners for some thoughts on the game. So we'll read some of those just now.
Graham Took of Chelsea Took basically went right to the point. He goes, Laba went wrong. Silly bastard.
Nick Wells at Nick Wellsy, he said that no Miller meant no one to hold the ball up that was needed when down a man. Matic strolling around didn't help. The thing with that, though, is I don't really think, even if Miller had stayed on, I don't think the Caps had the ball long enough for him to actually hold on to it, so I'm not even sure that would have made too much of a difference.
But the only issue was that he has a point about Maddox. Maddox on the first goal was thrown on. Maybe Miller comes in and plays a little bit deeper role, pushing everybody down deeper into that, that space in between. So,
I guess as well, like, Manny came on for Miller, and it was Manny that didn't close down Murray for the second goal. So maybe, we've seen how well Miller does close down and how well he does defend, so maybe that was quite costly.
Tyler Palk at TN Palk said Robbo shouldn't have subbed Kofi, Tybert instead. After Laba's red card, a defensive mid, supposed 2020 hindsight. Yeah, we talked about that. Maybe, I don't know if Tybert would have been the guy to be subbed off, but maybe kept Kofi on a little bit longer. But of course, if you think of it that way, Fernandez came on for Kofi, and he's the one that helped set up that first goal for the Whitecaps.
We got a few tweets from Matthew DeCap at ElysantX on Twitter, and he said, selfish play by Laba. Foul or not, 5-year-olds are told to play to the whistle. No defensive mid gave Colorado too much space. He also said Matic was our best player out there, and he was glad that he finally actually potted one, and he was also close to getting one earlier as well. He feels Morales didn't have his usual touch, which we were saying earlier. Most players were just hitting passes light and just trying to be too cute. Morales' problem was he was hitting them too heavy though as well. And the last thing from Matthew is he felt that subbing out Kofi was strange and that he was finally looking his old self out there.
Sam Peters at SamPeters016 said that Laba was the glue and they fell apart. Got complacent.
Pej Namsharin at Pejnam, he said Morales seemed to just be a bit off with some of his passes, and there was a missed chance that he had as well. Colorado, he felt, just defended well.
YPTO at mit_daftwager said that couldn't finish 3-on-1 chance for a 2-0 lead. That could have propelled them to the win regardless of the Laba handball, and we talked about that earlier too.
And the final comment from Twitter from former Southsiders president Chris Deal at 604 Chris Deal. He's not a fan of DeMerit, and he says that movie star is a liability, and he'd be happy if he just fades away. So that's our thoughts, some of our listeners' thoughts. You've heard the Whitecaps dressing room. Let's turn our attention now to the victors. Colorado Rapids. Predictapooch said it was going to be a Colorado win. I've told you, listen to Predictapooch. He knows what he's talking about. Once again, I went into the visitors' dressing room, and it was a very cock-a-hoop dressing room, as I like to say. And we're going to hear some audio from that now. We're going to hear first from head coach Pablo Mastroeni, captain Drew Moor, goalkeeper Clint Irwin, midfielder and MLS Rookie of the Year Dillon Powers, and finally we're going to hear a little bit, although it's through a translator as he doesn't actually speak any English, at least not yet, but apparently it's coming on very good, 2-goal hero Jose Mari. So Pablo, a fantastic comeback win there. How did you see the game overall?
I think it was a hard-fought contest. I think there's times where we were on the upper hand, but there's obviously times, especially in the second half, where Vancouver was pushing the game, and they got a good opportunity and scored with it, and then had another chance late or right after that the first goal there. And so we weathered some storms, and credit both teams. I think it was a battle, I think the guys in that locker room fought really hard and found a way to win. And this is something that we've been talking about all preseason, all the beginning, is finding ways to win. You can't coach that. That doesn't go on a whiteboard. That's found in the spirit of the group and the guys on the field.
You made 6 changes from last week. Were you concerned at any point that you didn't bring Edson Buddle or Sanchez with you?
Absolutely not. I have 27 players on this roster, and I believe in every single one of them. And from the beginning, every preseason game we played, I had experienced players playing with trialists. I do things a little differently. I'm a little out there, but I really believe in the spirit of the team. And when we go on the road and we have a lot of changes to our lineup, I am so confident in our ability as a staff to prepare these guys and give everyone the same opportunities during the week. And so we come here completely confident that we know exactly what we're going to get for the guys. Now, Edson and Vicente are special players, and again, it's a long season, and we want to make sure that that we have them as the season continues on, and not throwing the first 5 games on turf away from home and all these travels at them. And again, I said when I came in that we're going to win this as a team, and I hope my actions show that my actions back my words.
Now, a lot of people are thinking Colorado, Vancouver, it might be yourselves that are battling for one of the final playoff spots come the end of the season. With that in mind, just how big is coming here and getting a win today?
Yeah, every point that we get this year is huge. Every road game, every home game, and the mindset for me and the group is we're going to play every game to win. We're not going to play for a tie. We're not dropping off. We're not sitting in. 3 points are incredibly hard to come by. So figure if you do that, and if you win one game out of 3, you put yourself in the same position as if you would have tied all these games. So that's the mindset. Every point's critical. I mean, there's no easy game in this league anymore. Everyone asks me about the tough start that we have in the first 5 games. And I can't find one game in the next 34 games that are easy. So it's a great result for us. Extremely pleased with the effort, and excited to get back to work this week.
Last thing to ask about Clint Irwin. First start of the season today. How do you think he did? He had that huge save from Morales.
Listen, Clint, I think had a few big saves in that game, but more importantly, I think he brings a lot of confidence to that back line. His presence, his ability to communicate, his distribution today was excellent as well. Just a class goalkeeper and another pillar of this team that we're looking to build on. And I think tonight, he showed his worth and really deserves everything that the game gave him for his performance and keeping us in the game at the right times. So extremely excited to get him back out there and looking to build on this performance.
I think any game on the road is a tough game, but Pablo has preached since he was here. You got to be able to go on the road and get results. You have to play on the road in the playoffs. You can't expect to get all your points at home. We feel like home's a very good place for us, but yeah, here in Vancouver, to get what I believe is our first 3 points here. Now we've done it before, but this is a tough place to play, and Vancouver's a very good team. Early in the season for sure, but anytime you can go on the road against your conference opponent and get a victory, it's a good sign.
6 changes to the starting lineup this week. Does that just show how much depth this team has?
I think so. I hope so. We feel we have a very deep team. We've got some good young guys. I think everybody talked about how young we were last year. I feel like we're just as young, if not even younger this year. Pablo's got confidence in everybody, and we all have confidence in each other. And to be able to make some changes like that and still come on the road and get 3 points is a good sign at this point of the season.
I thought the team played really well. We kept the ball well. Maybe could have been a little more penetrative with our balls and our runs, but we hung in there, came up with 2 great goals from Jose Mari, and it's just a great result for us on the road.
For you personally, how did it feel to be out there for your first start of the season?
It felt great. First half I felt like I was a little rusty, just trying to get back in the swing of things. I had played a couple of reserve games, but it's different when you come on the road in front of 20,000 people. But it felt good to be back out there and just get back in a rhythm.
Now, a lot of folk are thinking when it gets to the end of the season, Vancouver, Colorado, you might be battling for one of the last playoff spots. How big is a win like this in a situation like that?
It's very big for us. I think at the end of the season last year, we played probably 2 out of the last 4 games against Vancouver, and we came up here and really struggled, and they really stuck it to us. And this is a really difficult place to play, and I think Vancouver plays really well here. So the fact that we can take 3 points from here is going to be huge for our season.
So Dillon, huge win for the team. How did you see the game going?
We had some pretty good possession, I thought, in the lower half of the field, better than our previous games, something we would try to do. We had a few chances we didn't make the most of. They got on us, they got a goal, and they had a chance to put the game away. Clint made a great save to keep us in it, and then some great goals from Jose to win the game for us. And it could have gone probably either way. Both teams, I thought, put in a pretty good performance.
Now, 6 changes from the team that started last week. Does that just show how much depth this squad has this season?
Yeah, I think that's something that Pablo has from day one wanted to do, is to make everybody comfortable with playing next to everybody. So 6 weeks of preseason, we played split squads, and guys got to know each other that way, and I think that's paying dividends right now.
Now, with Pablo coming in, and you were obviously here last season under Oscar, what differences have you noticed? I mean, what's Pablo done to kind of put his own stamp on this team?
A lot of the stuff they stress is fairly similar. It's not a night and day change. I think Pablo definitely brings a different feel to the team, and I think he really wants to play a very simple brand of soccer where you pass, move, next guy comes in, and that's, he's really made that clear that that's what he wants to do, is just to move the ball and move off the ball. I think that's the biggest things he stresses.
Have you hit 2 better goals than that?
¿Has marcado 2 goles mejores que estos dos?
No, la verdad que estos son los 2 mejores goles que he marcado, pero sí que es verdad que me quedo con la importancia que tienen.
True that I understand the importance that they have.
Son 3 puntos muy importantes para nosotros y a seguir creciendo.
We have to keep growing.
So as you could hear there, a very happy Colorado Rapids dressing room, and I have to say, like, that was my first time speaking to Pablo, and what a really, really nice guy, really good coach, and his team seems to have really bought into what he's wanting to do there. It's kind of had the same effect that Kyle Robinson's had here. He's got the players totally on his side, and they're really, really wanting to buy into where he sees the team going.
Of course, if they had lost the game, then it might have been a totally different story whether he was a nice guy or not.
Well, yeah, that would be the interesting one, because I mean, we've seen both sides of some coaches so far, but I enjoy watching Colorado play, and I really enjoy watching their home games, but they play a really nice attacking style, and I mean, they've got some great attacking guys. Deshaun Brown, Gabriel Torres, who was a regular last season in the DP, and of course Vicente Sanchez, who, I mean, those guys, and if we've got Mari now producing, I think the Colorado could be, once they really hit their stride, I think they could be dangerous playoff contenders this year. And that's bad news for the Whitecaps, because I do see, as we asked in those questions there, I do see it being a case between Vancouver and Colorado battling for maybe playoff spots 4, 5 and not being in the playoffs at all.
Now, a quick question that I want to pose to you that I was thinking as well. This is the 3rd straight time now obviously there was a red card involved in this one, but there's the 3rd straight time where the Whitecaps faced an opponent at home that they should have beaten based on what was going on paper. Like, this is the Colorado team was depleted at the back line. Game before that, RSL B team they were playing. Before that, Chivas. So this is a 3rd straight time. Is this a mentality thing with the Whitecaps, or is this something that they don't get up for these games because they think it's going to be an easy stroll, or is there something more to that?
It's kind of interesting you said that, because I was having a Twitter conversation today with former coach Paul Ritchie, and one of the other things he said is that he kind of feels there's a little bit of a complacency sometimes at home, that they've got such a good home record, and also it maybe starts to play a little bit with them mentally, that they think they don't have to do as much, or the pressure of the large crowd starts to get in them, and then when they aren't getting the breakthrough, it really starts to play in their mind a little bit.
So it could be a mentality thing for them at this point. Like, I don't know. I just find it odd that they're able to, like, they played a team against Houston that they definitely, there was going to be a tough game, but they came out on top on that one. New York, yes, they were depleted a little bit too, but they're still a good team overall coming into that game. So it just seems strange that they're not able to get up for these games that they clearly have an advantage over.
And for me, this was a massive game, because as I've said, I do see Vancouver and Colorado really battling it out points-wise as this season goes on. The Whitecaps now, I mean, today was the first of 5 straight games against Western Conference opposition. And so far this season, we haven't beaten Western Conference opposition. Now we've dropped 3 points to a team that made 6 changes, heavily depleted, and I mean, we asked in the interviews, as you've heard there, it kind of shows how much depth I think Colorado's got. And again, looking around the league, other teams in the West seem to have that depth, and I think that is what cost us last year. Do you feel that the Whitecaps have the same depth out there to challenge teams like Colorado and go to places away from home and grind in the West and grind out wins like Colorado did today?
I think they have a lot of attacking depth. I do question whether they have the depth of, like you're talking about, the grinding results out. I'm not sure if there is enough grinders on the team. That's where some guys like Matt Watson and those kind of type of players maybe helped in the past, but they definitely do have the attacking depth this year that they can go after people. It's a matter of if they want to go after people on the road or not. One of the guys that can help him in the next few games, once he gets, back to health, is Mehdi Bellucci, and he's a guy that a lot of people have talked about this year because he's been injured since the beginning. He's coming off a big knee injury, but he could be a guy that provides a little bit more MLS experience and some grit to that midfield that they may be lacking from before.
And it's looking like Mehdi might not be available until maybe late May, maybe even into June, so that they're certainly going to have to do something before then. And with 4 games coming up now, back-to-back against LA as well, this is really going to show a little bit of what this Whitecaps team is made of. And it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from this. Going to LA next week, I mean, you'll discuss this in your preview podcast. It's never an easy place to go. The Whitecaps have had mixed performances down there. And yeah, we'll kind of just see what they do. Just quickly turning our attention to the West, the big game today in the West, big game in MLS this week, was the Cascadia Cup clash between Portland and Seattle. Afternoon kickoff, an amazing 4-4 game.
Yeah, it was a great game. A lot of goals, obviously, but
really horrible defending as well.
Yeah, but I think the one thing we can say is both teams are still trying to find their way. It seems like I'm going to go back to Portland. I just don't think Portland is as good as people are saying they are, and they just saw a little bit like chinks in the armor. Losing Donovan Ricketts now for his second straight game, he was suspended for 2 straight games. I think that's really played a big part in this, obviously. But I mean,
Weber's been not too bad. He's been actually stronger than I thought he would do, and he's actually performed better for them than he did in the Amazing Race.
That's for sure. What do you think? Was it more of a Portland letting Seattle back in the game, or was it a game where nobody could defend it all?
It's a bit of both. I mean, the early stages, the defending was absolutely atrocious. That first 15 minutes, Seattle took the lead. Portland came back at 2-1, and you think at that point Portland's going to go on, and at 4-2 up, there's no way that they should have lost that game. They definitely let Seattle back, and once Seattle made it 4-3, you kind of got the sense that Seattle could do this and actually get back. And you know what? They could even have sneaked a 5-4 win in the end. I think ultimately, though, from both MLS playoff places and points and from Cascadia Cup standings, that draw was a fantastic result for Vancouver. And looking at both defences, I think Vancouver's got nothing to fear against either of these teams. And if Vancouver play to their attacking potential, they could get a lot of goals against both Seattle and Portland.
One of the things I will say, this is a little bit inside information. I was told that when the game was being played here at the stadium, a certain Canadian international defender, Jason DeVos, was getting very angry every goal, but then because he was just couldn't stand how horrible the defending was. So he was in agreement with you. There actually might be something up later on this week on TSN about that.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. We'll have to listen out for that on the TSN FC podcast. Just a shame, ultimately, though, that the Whitecaps couldn't capitalise on teams around them dropping points, and then instead of even coming away with 1 point from this game, finished with nothing. So that's it for another post-game show. Before we wrap things up, Steve, let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat, and obviously writing for AFTN.
And you can find me, Michael McCall, on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Send us an email about the site or the podcast at aftncanada@hotmail.com, and find all our writings, AFTN, on Canadian Soccer News, aftn.ca, canadiansoccernews.com, and also look out for my stuff on soccerly.com. So after an unbeaten March, first disappointing result for the Whitecaps, what's going to be interesting now is to see how they bounce back. So until next time, thanks for listening, take care, and mon the Caps.
When you're listening in some far-flung corner of the globe to the World Service of a Saturday afternoon, crackly reception, interference, cosy, marvellous. Somehow comforting, isn't it? You know, legendary names, fathers and sons on the terraces, cheesy peas at half-time, pint for dad, mum's at home making the tea. Oh, everything's all right with the world, isn't it? Saturday afternoon is football.